Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is our year to shine, and we're going to be continuing our discussion on Francine Jay's book, The Joy of Less. I just wanted to say before I get into the topic for today that I've made a decision based on a couple things that are going on. I've not been feeling well, as you know, and this is just really lingering on and taking a lot out of me. So I am not going to try to finish this book in just the month of April. And the other reason is because I am getting ready to move finally. I have the move-in date. So because I'm going to be, hopefully this move won't be very difficult, but I'll be sort of preoccupied with that. I figured I'm going to space this out to finish it by the end of May. And that way I can do short little videos on each of the rooms that we're going through, because today is the first one. And so hopefully you're on board with that. I know all the other ones I've done in a month. And then what I'm going to do, and I'll just tell you now so that you can get prepared if you want to get a copy. This is the book that I thought about doing in place of this one originally. It's Dr. Wayne Dyer's Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. And I have never read it, but I've heard a few audio performances of him when he was touring with this book, so I'm familiar with the concept. And we've talked a lot about how you can be paralyzed by your own thinking throughout our Simple Abundance year and then this year. So it is an important topic, and I mentioned to you that I had found a book that I could spend an entire year on probably, and this is the one I was talking about. But I've decided what I'll do is I'm going to do this for the summer, so June, July, and August. And there's 81 different topics in it, and I don't, obviously I won't probably do every single one, but I'd like to do a longer study on this one. And I thought that would be a nice little summer reading sort of project. You could get up and read a verse each morning. I'm trying to think of, there wouldn't be 81 days, maybe, I don't know, I didn't do the math, but anyway, so that's the plan if you want to get that book ahead of time. And then I'm going to be stretching out The Joy of Less. So have you been doing anything around the house? Because I have. I've definitely pared some things down. I have noticed when I was going through some drawers in my office area that I had, well, I didn't count everything, but I had an insane amount of black Sharpie markers. Also in the bathroom I was going through, I have it very organized and labeled and everything, but I haven't gone through stuff in a while. So I got rid of old makeup. I got like excess makeup that I've just, for shows or whatever. I didn't get rid of my regular makeup. And then I got to Q-tips. And I probably had a lifetime supply of toothpicks. Or, not toothpicks, Q-tips. I could probably never buy Q-tips again. And I've had some in a jar, and then I had excess in a Ziploc bag. So yeah, it's not great to throw stuff away, but maybe I could have found out if there was some organization that needed them. But anyway, I have been doing the trash treasure transfer process in some of the areas of my living space. So it's going well so far. I'm also realizing, I already said this once, that I tend to have all these little trinkets around, and Francine calls them tchotchkes, and she's not big on them, but I think that's my thing. I have a lot of little ornamental things. But as I'm going through, and I took everything off my desk the other day, and I was like, well, all right, I have this rock that somebody painted for me, and then I have this other rock that says something on it, and then I have this other rock that, I have all these inspirational things. So I was kind of thinking, well, with some of those things I can go out in the woods and leave little rock messages for people, and so I won't be trashing everything, and I'm not getting rid of anything that is a super treasure to me, obviously, but I'm realizing how many of those little things that I have around. So today we're going to be talking about the living room, or otherwise known as the family room, right? So this is a good one to start with, because she makes a few good points about how a lot of times it's what people see when they first walk in, because it's kind of like typically that's when you come in a front door, at least in American homes, there's that gathering room with couches and maybe the TV and maybe a fireplace and things like that. So she tells us, and you could do this with every room that you do, but she starts us off by saying, go outside your house and then come back in and pretend you've never been there before and see what you notice. Like, do you notice that there's a coffee table and there's all these old magazines on it? I mean, remember she told us about having surfaces that are bare so that it can be like a project area, instead of it being a place where things are just stacked up like books and stuff. So go into your house, and specifically for the living room for this one, and really give it a once over and notice things that maybe you've gotten used to, because she does mention, and I think about this at my workplace too, that once you're around a lot of stuff that's clutter, and you might not notice those magazines after a while because that's just what you're used to seeing. So if you come in with a fresh eye, you might be like, how did I have all these back issues in this pile here? And so that's a good strategy to do with each thing. And then of course you're going to use that trash, treasure, and transfer idea with the things in your house. And you're again, this is just the living room, but you're looking around to sort of see what is the use of this thing. And she encourages us to think about whether we even need all the furniture that we have. Maybe a sofa sectional made sense years ago, and now it's just taking up a huge amount of space. And if you got a smaller little love seat or something, then you'd have room to do yoga or something. I mentioned that in another video. So she encourages you to sort of think about each piece of furniture. And maybe you don't even have a television. A lot of people don't. So in that case, you won't need like a hutch sort of thing with places for DVDs and movies and stereo. I mean, there's just lots of things that you probably wouldn't need. So be thinking about, again, this is about what are the things that you're actually using. It's not about just getting rid of stuff to get rid of stuff, but it's also making it like spreading stuff out so that it feels more airy and less cluttered, and like you feel like you can breathe and you can think and you can actually do activities too. So focus on the big stuff first, she says. Don't feel obligated to own certain things too, just because other people do. Whatever works for you. She said that at one of the houses that she lived with her husband, they didn't even have a couch in one of their living rooms because they didn't actually spend a whole lot of time in that room. So they just got 2 nice chairs and 1 little end table, and that was sufficient for them. So it depends on your lifestyle, right? And after you've dealt with the large items, it's time to move on to the smaller ones. And depending on your living room, there might be quite a few. Yeah, because this is the room that things can gather in, not intentionally too. Like it might be the room, again, that it's like your door is right there, so everybody throws their shoes on the floor or their backpacks or their jackets just like thrown over the couch, So you have to think about those things, and maybe it is coming up with a system of organization for those things so that they don't become clutter. So take the time to do a thorough job, even if it takes weeks or months. Yeah, she doesn't want us to rush through this either. So actually that's good that I'm not rushing through the book either. So try clearing the room entirely of decorative, non-functional pieces and sweep them from the shelves, the mantle, the console, and the side tables. So that would be speaking to me with all my little things. Sometimes extraneous items can stifle our enjoyment of a space without us even realizing it. And I was thinking, because I took everything off of the hutch that sometimes you see in the background of my videos, and that's where I realized like I had all these little things. It was like I had to feel like I filled every little space. Why do I feel that way? I don't know. So we'll see. I tried to pare it down a little bit. So then, of course, we're narrowing down, right, with our streamline. Ideally, we want nothing more than that which meets our needs. At the bare minimum, a living room needs some sort of seating for household members. Extreme minimalists and those of non-Western cultures may be perfectly content with a few full floor cushions. That might totally work for you. That would not be comfortable for me, I don't think. And yeah, a bachelor might get away with the lounge chair. A family, on the other hand, they might want a sofa, but do they need a gigantic one? Or can it also serve a second function? Remember, we talked about that with the minimalism. Maybe it's also a sleeper sofa so that you don't have to have another room for guests. You don't have to have another bed either, right? Because it can just be right under there. So again, we always have tables of some kind in the living room, I think. And she says you'll need at least one, especially if you have a family, because it will, like a table you might play cards around, or kids might come in and do their homework on. There might be a desk in the room too, she says. Another way to minimize is to invest in multifunctional furniture. Yeah. So there are even couches that sometimes have like a built-in wooden thing that like folds underneath, and then it comes up and it becomes like a table. So there's lots of different things that they have now. And then she talks about not having a television. I mentioned that. The less stuff you have, the less shelving you need. Yeah, because she does mention that there's usually a bookshelf of some kind. And paring down the books we talked a little bit about in the last video. Why are we holding on to so many books that we just are displaying that we read them, I guess. And then, so remember we talked about the modules and sort of bringing things together into areas. Well, same thing in the living room. So this is your living room, and this is the room that you're going to do certain things in. So it makes sense that you will probably have a remote for the television. There might be things like coasters for drinks. I mean, so think about what you're going to be doing in this room and what the things serve as function, what their functions are. Define the regions of the room where you might be watching television, or you might store things, or you might have like a book area where you sit by a window that you like and read your book, or there might be needing to be like a lamp there for you when you're reading. And like I said, there might be a desk, there might be like a craft area that someone is using, and she suggests trying to have some sort of like a psychological boundary between the two areas, like even a folding screen or something to section that off. And then remember the outer and the inner circle. So in the living room, the inner circle items are those you use on a regular basis. So like the things I mentioned, like the remote control, things that you need to get out of drawers and things like that. And the outer circle should be household items used less than once a week, like certain hobby and craft supplies, reference books. So maybe those things are in totes and they fit. She mentioned like having an ottoman where you can put stuff either inside of it or underneath it. I have one of those. I should be using the space underneath it. So you don't need to have those hobby things right out in the open. So they can be in that room where you might partake in them, but they could be a little more organized and hidden away. And then also creating the modules, like I mentioned. And trying to, instead of storing all your movies, she mentions, like in a jumbled mess. I'm not like this, but she does recommend putting them into groupings with genres and things like that. And I mean, maybe alphabetical. And one of you who's watching helped me unpack my movies here and wanted to put them like in color coding, and I think, and I don't care about that, but I know that makes sense. And so Francine is saying that she thinks that it will also help you if you have multiples of something that you didn't realize that you have when you get them grouped like that into modules. Yeah, and so again, if you have your hobby things in a module, like a little tote or something, then you'll just be able to go and grab it and get it out. And then, of course, everything in its place, right? So then you're going to put it back where it goes after you're done with it. we want to limit our collections to our favorite items too. When she's talking about collections and hobbies, I don't know how I feel about this. With the hobbies, she says that if you are no longer, well, I get this. If you're no longer really partaking in a hobby, then you should get rid of the stuff that you're not using. I can understand that. But she says to try to choose hobbies that don't have a lot of things required for them. And I don't think I'd want to limit myself to that. I wouldn't want to be like, oh, I'm not going to have that hobby because there's too many accessories. Like, I don't care. Like, but I guess on the minimal side of it, then you would be accumulating more if you have hobbies that require a lot of things. But as far as movies and stuff, like having a collection of movies or CDs, she mentions, this is so true, you can get all that stuff at the library and you don't have to own it. You can just borrow it. So I like what she's saying in this book. It's not like you have to deprive yourself of experiences, but you don't necessarily have to own those things to experience them. And remember, we talked about having limits. We're going through the streamlining here. In your living room, put limits on every type of possession that resides there. Once you've reached them, purge the old before adding something new. So again, one goes in, one goes out, right? Our taste change over the years. Yeah, we grow tired of certain movies and music and pastimes, and we maybe artwork and things. Those things are going to change. So out with the old and with the new. So it's not like you can't buy anything new, but if you're going to buy something new, then you need to get rid of the old thing. Okay, and she talks about the craft supplies and things like that, and also limiting your collectibles. So, and that can be hard because as soon as a family member finds out that you like something, then they might just go nuts, and all of a sudden you have this huge collection of things, and you only really sort of liked it, but they just thought of you every time they saw like a penguin or something like that because they knew that you had a collection. So again, trying to make a prominent thing. Oh, and I like this. I think this was something from an Eastern culture where they have treasures, but they only put out 2 things at a time, and it's like they rotate the things throughout the year. So maybe it's like my mantle where I have been decorating it for seasonal times. But in this case, say I had a collection of 12 different Disney characters or something like that, then I would just put out 2 for, say, the month of April, and then I'd go and I'd rotate them at some sort of interval. That's a neat idea. So it's like you still have your whole collection, but maybe you're just not showing them off all at the same time. It might be really excessive if they're all out there together. Set limit on your decorative items. Take inspiration from so it's the traditional Japanese homes. They have only 1 or 2 carefully chosen pieces displayed at a time. And then the 1 in and 1 out rule pertains. And then maintaining. So remember we talked a little bit about how if you see something that is someone else's, you at least bring it to their room if they haven't picked up their stuff. Or at the end of the day, everybody just needs to grab their stuff and put it away so that the surface is clear, and so that the next time people come into the room, then they have that space. And she does recommend to keep the floor, our largest space, she says, as clear as possible. Especially if you have kids, because they want to play and roam. We should think of our living rooms as a flex space. In the office, flex space is a work area open for anyone's use. When an employee arrives in the morning, he sets up an available empty desk for the day, and when he leaves, he takes everything with him. So again, it's like you're using the room, but then you're bringing your things back to your bedroom, maybe where your toys are stored or something. And again, she's talking about how when you first come in, people just throw their stuff in the living room, like coming up with a way. Maybe there's a box by the door that collects things. Flush out those invaders at first sight and make sure that anything entering or traveling through the room doesn't get a chance to stop. Hang up coats, put away shoes, handle the mail, take new purchases directly to their appropriate spots. So that is the maintaining part, right? The living room is where you'll most often encounter other people's clutter. Ideally, this problem will wane with time as household members learn to respect the flex space and take personal items with them when they leave the room. In the meantime, however, you may have to take control and boomerang the stuff right back to the owners. How are you doing in your house with that kind of thing? I live with just me and Annabelle, so if there's stuff that's left out, then it's mine. And plus, my place is so small, it's only a few steps to the bedroom. So some of this stuff I can see working more for a family home. But I can appreciate the modules and the decluttering and the paring down, and I'm definitely getting started. Next time we will be talking about the bedroom. That is the next chapter. So we're going to go through the various different rooms, and then we'll wrap up. There's another section or two after we go through the rooms. So again, settle in. I'm not going to be done with this in a week or two. So we'll continue our discussion on the joy of less. I hope that you are starting to do a little bit around the house. And thanks for bearing with me. I know I haven't really been on much, but I just, it's taking a lot out of me to just do my daily activities. So I hope you're well, and I will see you on the next video. Love to you all. Bye-bye.